about. This is the camera.
So that's the thing that they were
This
talking
is the
about.
camera.
That's it, and that's picking up the
that's
sound
it.
too. So that's the whole deal, and it's got like a fisheye lens that Ellie and Kirsten were telling me about. That's awesome. So welcome back, everyone. We are on the second part of our evening side of Day 6 programming here at the 2017 Twin Cities Film Fest, hosted by the Shops at West End and the beautiful Shield Place Icon Theater that we're standing in right now. We are standing on our presenting sponsor, Fleurdejunk red carpet. And what we are right in front of is our crime shorts block. Now, what's really neat about our shorts blocks each year, we don't determine what the blocks are going to be about. We take in our film programming and we select those titles based on the content of the films that are coming in. So super unique, super cool, and also super unique and super cool. Joining me, I'm your host tonight, Doug Sidney, is a longtime Minnesota film, television, commercial writer, director, producer, Andrew Hunt. You've done it all, which we're going to talk about. But the reason we get to have you here tonight is for Level.
Yes.
Your short film, that's a part of the crime block. And you're doing something really unique with your films, which this is, I think, the third. You don't need a lot of dialogue to be completely gripping and suspenseful and having audiences at the edge of their seat. How do you do it?
Well, you know, it's first off, I like take a page out of like Hitchcock or like George Miller's playbook, which is if you don't need to say it and you can show it, better, because then the movie becomes more global. Because usually the only barrier you see in like most films is language. So if I can get rid of that and focus on just a mostly visual and like an audio experience, then the cool thing is that then this movie can not just play here in the United States. It could play in Japan. It could play in Germany. It could play in Pittsburgh. And so so basically that is kind of the thing that I really enjoy because it allows me to kind of stretch my legs and do some really cool, strong visual stuff. The other thing is the big challenge when you're making a film where you have very little dialogue is now every other element in the film now has to carry that weight. So when it comes to sound design, you have to treat the sound design like it's dialogue. You're looking at your visuals and you know that you need to say certain things with this shot because you don't have the luxury of dialogue. And then when it comes to the actor, Noah Gillette, who literally is in almost every frame of this movie, he is such a phenomenal actor that it was great for us to go, okay, you're not going to be saying this or that, you have to do this in a look. So it really makes everyone kind of step up their game of how can we tell a story that is all visual and do it in a way, and most importantly, and this is the most terrifying thing for me, how do we keep it engaging for the audience? And especially with the running time that Level is, which is like 18 minutes.
Which is a subject topic all on its own. That's an amazing accomplishment, but please go on.
And it was one of the things that my editor, when he called me up after he had done the assembly, like I felt that he was calling me up telling me that somebody died. Because he was like, the cut's coming in and it's coming in at 18 minutes. And I'm like, because we were expecting 12. And
there was so much there.
There was a lot there, and because you're dealing, like we're playing in the horror thriller genre, that it's all about tension and building up that tension. And so in order to do that, you need time. So it was one of those things where at the end of the day we sat there and went, okay, you know what, this thing is playing a little longer than we expected, but the best part about it was when we would show it to people, and this is how I find out if my movie works or not. I'll show somebody my movie and go, how long do you think it was? And, so then they're not BSing you and saying, oh, it's great, it's perfect. And so the cool thing is that when we were showing it to people and going, how long do you think it is? They're like, it's what, like 9, 10 minutes? And then we were like, okay, we're done. We can, yes, picture is locked, and now we go on to sound.
Right, okay, so you talk about no dialogue, less dialogue, and you'd think it'd be less of a challenge. You're creating more of a challenge for yourself, so you might be a bit of a glutton.
Yeah.
But amazing filmmaking is coming out of it. And you also mentioned language as a barrier in film. Tell me more about that.
Well, I mean, the thing is that filmmaking and making films, it's an international thing. People in Japan or people in Germany,
yes.
Or people in the Middle East, they all have the same exact emotions we do. Yep. We all get scared, we all laugh, we all cry.
Yep.
And as soon as someone starts to speak, all of a sudden now the demographic of the movie shrinks.
Yep.
And so that was the thing where when we were putting the movie together and designing it, I really didn't want any dialogue because I want to scare the shit out of people in Japan just as much as I want to scare the shit out of people in Germany. So yes, that's why.
I love that aim. You're going for a global, worldwide audience. Which is amazing. So talk to me about this common psychological thread that I find in your work, that audiences have found in your work. I may be putting it on the spot right now, but there is so much psychological and mentally that's going on with what's going through your characters and what they're going through. So you must have a keen sense of the human condition and how that relates to your genres that you're in. Horror, thriller.
Okay, now for a minute I'm going, oh God, I can't sound artsy because I don't know how to do that. But no, I think, the thing is that when you're the writer and the director, or the writer or director, it's knowing what your character, always knowing what that character is going through mentally. And if you know what that character is thinking at that point in time, it's easier to write because now, and it's great because it's almost like you're foreshadowing what you're going to be saying to the actor. So, in your head when you're putting the script together and you're creating this character arc, and you're going, well, this is where he's going to be thinking about right, like at this point, because especially like in Level, I would joke with people when they say, what's the movie about? And a lot of the times when I'm doing something serious, my log lines sound like jokes, but I tell people, I'm like, well, it's like Groundhog's Day in hell. And so when you're setting up that premise, the fear of dying is no longer like the end result. Yes. The fear of losing your mind is. Yes. So that when Noah and I were sitting there and talking a lot about like the character arc and everything, our fear was not that the guy is afraid to die. Our fear, the fear we want to create for the audience is that this is never going to end. And and if that's the case, it's kind of like being claustrophobic.
Could be worse than death.
Absolutely, it's like someone trapped in an avalanche and they can breathe, and so like that to me is more horrifying than suffocating. And so that's kind of the idea with Level is that we really wanted to make it so this character was constantly tormented and there's no end in sight.
Yep. So I want to touch back on your span of your career at work. Now, have you acted before?
Yes and no. When I was 10 years old, I knew I wanted to be a filmmaker, and I would read all these magazines, and all the magazines I'd read about directors working with actors, and actually it started with like Jack Nicholson and the Two Jakes, when he was talking a lot about how, because he was an actor, he was able to direct actors in a different way, and he understood their process. So, and I can't believe that I made this decision when I was 10, because this is like the smartest thing I've ever done in my life. Is I thought, well, there's no film schools for 10-year-olds in Western Pennsylvania, but there are acting classes. And so I started taking acting classes at a very young age, and my parents would drive me to Pittsburgh and drive me back. And so I got to learn how to act. I'm a horrible actor, but I got to understand the process. So when it came, and it's great because when you understand how actors work, it makes you a better writer because now you know how to write for those moments. And then most importantly, it gives you the ability to communicate with actors because at the end of the day, you can have the fanciest camera in the world, you can have the best technology, you can have a red camera, blah, 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 blah. But if you don't have good actors in front of that lens, you got nothing. And so I've always been very excited to work with actors and play with them in that way.
And that's why I asked, because you have the ability, an uncanny ability, one that is not automatic, to be able to work with actors and to bring out so much from them. And I've spoken with other actors that have gotten to work with you, and they've all said the same, hence my questioning there. Now, I'd love to talk to you about the other work that you do, because you've spanned, I think film is your favorite.
Yeah.
That's what drew you to this line of work. But you've worked in commercial, you've done television, you've been on television, we'll touch on that. You've done live television, and talk to us about all those different areas and how you navigate in that and find professional work with it for the lifespan that you have.
Well, the first thing is that the one thing that connects every single one of those different genres or those different areas inside, is stories, and they're all about people. I mean, I'm never making a story about furniture or making a story about animals. Most of the times, all the times, I'm telling stories about human beings. And so when you're doing a commercial, it's forcing you to tell a story about a human being in 20 seconds because you got to leave 10 seconds for the graphic at the end.
It's for a product, but it's about people.
Yeah, and
great point.
But it's always entertainment. You always have to look at entertaining your audience. And the one thing that you never want to do is you never want to sell them first and entertain them second. You always want to entertain first. So when it comes to commercials, that is kind of like where you have to be incredibly specific when it comes to creating a narrative. When it comes to like the documentary series stuff that I've done, that to me...
I didn't even mention that, thank you.
Yeah.
Documentary work as well.
To me, that is incredibly fun because I have no control of the situation. Yep. I show up and we are basically looking for stories.
Yep.
So if something happens in front of us, we have to... The great thing is, what the cool thing about documentaries has taught me is to listen. And so you have to be, you can't be a control freak, you have to basically managing chaos. And when something happens in front of you, and if you capture it, then you're constantly working really, really fast on how you can create that as a story right there on the spot.
More content that you need have the obligation almost to work with.
Yeah, absolutely. And what that teaches you, and like the coolest thing is that, you know, every single area that I've played in, it always teaches me something of what I'm doing right now. So, for example, the documentary stuff where I have no control, it is one of those situations that when I'm on a set with a script and with actors and something's not working, because I did the documentary stuff, I've learned not to panic. So I just go, okay, I just need to step back for a second and just analyze what just happened and figure out a new game plan. So, like, the greatest thing is that, and it's the same thing with doing theater or doing anything in the entertainment world where you're telling a story. Every time you tell a new story, it just adds more tools to your belt.
That experiential skill set.
Yes, exactly. So it's great.
One last thing, because then we got to get you in, and we're being told to wrap up. We could talk for 20 more minutes.
Oh,
but
no, totally.
What I think is so awesome too is what you do during the day now. You're sharing your gift. Mm-hmm. You're teaching at IPR, which is here in Minneapolis. It's a broadcasting school. Mm-hmm. Talk to us briefly, if you could, about that.
Well, you know, it's funny because my mother's side of the family are all teachers, and I never really thought of myself as a teacher until I started kind of teaching. And I was getting as much of a kick and a buzz from teaching than I am when I'm making a movie or when I'm directing. And there is nothing cooler, and especially with Level, like I'd say 70% of my crew is my students. And there is nothing cooler that when you get all these incredibly talented, hungry, passionate, you know, craftsmen, and you get them in a room and you go, okay, we're going to make a movie that we're going to scare the crap out of everyone. Yep. And then while you're making the film, there were no students on my sets, and there never are. Even though my students are there, they're professionals, and they are, I mean, it's like a little army.
You treat them as such and you expect
Absolutely. I mean, I don't hold anybody's hand, and I BS no one. So if there is a student that's dropping the ball, you know, a lot of people will probably see me pull them in the corner and go, hey, pull your head out of your ass, we got to make a movie. But the greatest thing is that when you see them on the set, and it clicks in their head, like what they're doing, and the excitement they get, I feed off of that. I'm always the crazy nut job on sets, and when I see them with that crazy nut job energy, it fuels me even more to keep going. So it's, you know, the thing is, if I could make a movie every year or so and teach at the same time, man, I'm in heaven.
And you're contributing a ton. Andrew Hunt, zero fluff, all 100% amazing information, and a great discussion on your body of work. Tonight, it's Level. I'm sure you'll be back again with us here in the 2017 Twin Cities Film Fest. Fleurdejunk sponsored red carpet for our crime shorts block. Andrew Hunt.
Cool. Andrew, thank you very much.
Thank you. We'll see you again.